Greetings, Earthlings! What is up? Welcome back to 7th Street. So I recently got a request on one of my, I think it was actually my last reference to this film for Conquest from Lorenzo Fontanazzi. I think I'm saying that correctly. I'm just trying to remember off of memory. He asked if I would do another quick tour of my Fulci section, specifically in my movie collections here. I'll kind of just go down like this one shelf here that's mostly just like some Italian stuff. A lot of like my Italian hoarder Blu-rays, but I keep all of my Fulci films in that one section. These are just the Fulci films that I have a hard copy of. That's not counting some of the ones that I have digital copies of, or I'm not going to be showcasing the VHS tapes, really. I mean, I might show the ones that are just kind of out and about. But before I get into that, guys, I just wanted to, thank you guys for watching, thanking you for getting me above 1,000 subscribers. I know that it's kind of a crazy time right now, what with the current pandemic that we're all living through. And times right now I know can be tough. Some of you are quarantined on lockdown. I'm fairly sure that my city is going to go on complete lockdown here pretty soon. Just wanted to say honestly, that I hope you guys are being safe. I love you guys, and if you're ever bored, you can just message me on Facebook or here on YouTube, and we can just kind of shoot the shit. Because I really do care about you guys. I hope you guys are doing good out there. And if you're really bored on lockdown, make sure that you watch some of the videos on my channel, or watch some of the original content, the original horror films that I've written and directed, some of which are on YouTube. They're like on my channel. Some of the short films, some of the feature films have been distributed by Kings of Horror, which I know has a YouTube page. Spunk's Not Dead is now free on Amazon Prime. I not only directed a segment and was the director of photography on a segment, but I'm actually an actor in one of the segments. And then, of course, Jesus, I Was Evil, which is 7th Street Productions' newest release, feature horror film release. It's kind of a horror comedy. It's on Amazon as well. It's also on Vudu and Xfinity and Google Play. So, if you're stuck inside and, just want to check out some, just some good old independent horror films, go ahead and check some of those movies out, and let me know what you think. I mean, I'll be stuck at home, so I'll reply to you. So anyways, guys, without further ado, let's get into my my tour of my physical Fulci collection. I realize that I might have to do a little bit more jumping around here than I thought, because I know that I do have a section over here that's almost exclusively zombie movies. You can see that a couple are missing, because since we're in the midst of a pandemic, guys, I felt like there was not a better time to get really into zombie movies again, so I've kind of been binging them. But of course, I have my Lucio Fulci zombie 4K Blu-ray, this 3-disc set. I mean, these things are amazing. I kind of was wondering if Blue Underground for a little while there might start to putter out and not be able to compete with some of the other companies out there, kind of like Severin and Vinegar Syndrome and some of those guys, Shout Factory. It kind of seemed like they were being left in the dust, and they sort of just kind of roared back with these like 3-disc limited editions with the lenticular covers. Of course, yes, I got the Splinter Eye, because I felt like that was, the one that, like, all the diehards would get. But since doing that, I've kind of regretted my decision. I kind of wish I would have got the one where it's the zombies walking across the George Washington Bridge. I kind of think that slip cover is a little bit better than this one, but oh well. I keep this one on display. Looking here, I know I have at least one more Fulci film to talk about, yep, and that is my Shout Factory release of Zombie 3, which is in this zombie pack. Now, I know that Zombie 3 and Zombie 4 are both released by Severin now, and I really need to get it because, no, the Shriek Show release is not very good. The transfer is not very good. In some points, it looks like VHS quality. But I'm very nostalgic about this box set here. I remember when it came out, I must have been in like 6th grade, and I actually saw Zombie 3 being sold individually. And I was like, holy fucking shit, I saw this at Suncoast Video, and I wanted it, but it was like $25, and, you know, my allowance was only like $15 at the time. My dad was like, no fucking way, I'm not buying this movie. But, God, I just thought that this, I remember looking at this and seeing these scenes and just making the movie up in my head, and, man, I really wanted it. And then I saw it in this pack, and I begged for it for Christmas, and my dad went and got it, and you can see that it's all beat up now, you know, because I got this thing when I was like 11. But I've always held on to it, and I don't see myself ever getting rid of it. And then I ended up getting the zombie pack too. You know, and I think that those will always be a good part of my collection, and since they're like, even though the transfer isn't as good, it's still a DVD that's like kind of treasured in my collection, so I just didn't really feel any need to like rush out to go get the version that was released by Severin. So yeah, no other Fulci films here, I don't believe. Alright, now just kind of like moving down, I'll just kind of do my whole little, this is kind of, I mean, it's not all of my Italian horror films, but it's the ones that, you know, I think are really pretty. I wanted to keep together. Of course, I have the House by the Cemetery Blue Underground release. I already talked about all of these. I highly recommend them. There's the one for the New York Ripper. They're all very beautiful, have got kind of like a teal tint to them that I find really nice. Yeah, I can't say enough about these. I love them. I love kind of like displaying them, displaying their lenticular covers, you know. They like deserve to be on display. They're just so good looking. Okay, kind of moving in. Like I said, this is not necessarily all my Fulci stuff, so I'll kind of skip through the non-Fulci stuff. I just figure I'll do the entire shelf here. The Night Train Murders, one of those movies I wish I liked a lot more than I did. Delirium, starring Mickey Haggerty, not necessarily one of the better Italian horror films out there, but it has a certain sleaze factor to it. I actually like the beginning of this movie that kind of like starts in Vietnam. I like that aspect. It's kind of like seedy, Rambo, almost, like seedy Italian Rambo. Mountain of the Cannibal God. This is a great one. This is a great Sergio Martino film. Stacy Keach is really good in it. You know, it's pretty typical. It's not, you know, overly gory, not overly violent, but it's not really tame by any measure. It doesn't have like horrific animal violence, but it still has some animal violence. It's kind of one that just gets lost in the mix, but it's one that I rather enjoy every time I watch it. Torso, you know, just trying to keep some of my Martino movies together. This is a great giallo that I initially put in my top 5 favorite giallo countdown. I don't think that's the case anymore. I tend to like this movie less and less every time I see it. That's not to say that it's not good. Maybe it just works better your, like, first time, maybe second time watching it, and then once you know everything, maybe it just kind of loses its flavor. Shock, Mario Bava's last film. ghost story starring Dario Argento. This is a fantastic ghost movie. It's actually got some genuine chills in it. I want to do a reference this film on this movie. It's one that sort of influences some of like my style, I guess. My newest film that I just finished directing and that I'm editing right now, which is called No Sleep, was pretty influenced by this film, I would say. Maybe more than I think. I remember about halfway through production of No Sleep, I watched this movie again and realized, like, how much from this movie maybe I was, like, trying to copy or something. Two Evil Eyes, Dario Argento and George Romero, their anthology movie. This is really good. I really want to do a reference to this film on this film as well. The first segment, which is Romero's, I think, is the best, honestly. It's my favorite. Dario Argento's Deep Red, the giallo film of his that really everyone seems to consider to be maybe his best work. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. Suspiria, Inferno, Mother of Tears, got the Mother of Tears trilogy, Argento's Dracula, Four Flies on Grey Velvet, which is great, and Opera, or Phantom of the Opera, which is actually, I think, a pretty underrated Dario Argento film. Got Joe Diamato's Anthropophagus here. It's the Scream Factory release. I know that Severin also did a release of this, and I really want to get it, but once again, you know, there's so much stuff out there that I love to get, and it's not like I'm a reviewer that these places, like, send free movies to. I wish they would. Like, if anyone from Severin or any of those Blu-ray companies are listening, like, send me some shit, and I'll give you a positive feedback. People actually listen to me sometime, so I don't get as much shit as I wish I did, just, you know, for money reasons, obviously. House on the Edge of the Park, which is fantastic. I did a reference to this film on it. And then the Last House on Massacre Street, which I think is a pretty underrated film. You can't go into it expecting anything, because it's not what its title suggests. But I think overall this is a pretty good film, and I also plan on doing a reference to this film on Last House on Massacre Street. I think it's a pretty good movie. The ending is pretty cool. Killer Crocodile 1 and 2, these are both brilliant. I wish that I had these when I was a kid. Oh my god, they're just so much fun. The crocodile puppet is fucking great. The action is good. The blood is good. The acting is absolutely hilarious, like laugh out loud funny. This is a terrific pickup. If you can get yourself this, like, 2-movie set, get it. Cannibal Holocaust, one of my favorite movies of all time. That's my little cannibal section that I have here with Cannibal Apocalypse, and Cannibal Ferox, and Man from Deep River, Eaten Alive, Umberto Lenzi's Eaten Alive, which is just a brutal movie. I Spit on Your Grave, Lombardo Bava's Delirium, Island of the Fishmen, Scorpion with Two Tails, all these Martino movies here. The Red Queen Kills 7 Times, which is another one that I wish I liked more than I did, but I don't. I should probably give it a couple more chances. Once again, just so you know, I've got, like, more Italian movies, like, especially in the zombie section and stuff. It's just, like, all spread out. Like, I don't really have a system. It's not alphabetical. Like, it makes sense to me, but it would never make sense to another human being. Shocking Dark, Bruno Mattei film, Ghost House. I absolutely love this film, all the La Casa movies. The Other Hell, which I think is probably a pretty big influence on my movie Jesus, I Was Evil, which is now out on Amazon. Not in, like, a stylistic or story way, but just in, like, that movie's kind of like my modern take on, like, a nunsploitation film, sort of. A modern nunsploitation. Demons and Demons 2, and here's some of my other hard copies of some of my Fulci films. So, yes, I haven't upgraded all of them. I've got my lenticular cover of Cat in the Brain, which is another one that I've had forever. And, yeah, I mean, I remember walking to the store and buying this with my allowance. It was actually at a Borders Books, and I just thought the lenticular cover was so good. I was so excited to see it, and then I was pretty let down. I mean, I love Fulci, but I want to like it so bad, but I don't like it as much as everyone else does. And trust me, I try. I watch it all the time. The Black Cat, why I got the Arrow DVD of this, I don't know. Economic reasons, a little bit of a cheapskate sometimes. I mean, the DVD transfer still looks nice, you know, and I have I play it on a Blu-ray player and a 4K TV, so, you know, whatever that's worth. Absolutely love The Black Cat, as well as Manhattan Baby. This is another one that I really want to get the Blue Underground Blu-ray of, because I really like this movie. My next podcast I'm planning on kind of being centered around Manhattan Baby and the movies that the little kid from City of the Living Dead is in, or, excuse me, House by the Cemetery. Then, of course, I've got the Beyond still in an Anchor Bay, still rocking the old Anchor Bay stuff. City of the Living Dead, Blu-ray, not Blu-ray, Blue Underground, Voices from Beyond, and this was another Shriek Show one? No, it's Image, and it's still kind of like this sticker from where I bought it. So you can see I would get about $15 for my allowance. So I saw this and said, oh, hell yeah. Blue Underground released of Conquest. Lucio Fulci's House of Clocks. Which, I actually like Sweet House of Horrors, I think maybe a little bit better than I like House of Clocks. And that's actually one that I don't have, like, a physical copy of. For the longest time, I kept bidding on this guy who had a VHS version of it, and I really wanted it. And, he kept outbidding me. But, yeah. Pneumonia. I did reference this film of this movie. It's not a very good episode. I didn't really do it justice. But boy, I really liked this movie. I actually kind of went through a little phase where I really, really liked this movie and kind of considered it to be like the true movie to go in Fulci's Gates of Hell trilogy. You know, and I still feel like I could make that argument, and if people want to comment, I'll have that argument with you, that I feel like Pneumonia kind of, like, bridges the, you know, I know that they're out of order right now, but just stick with me. I feel like it kind of, like, bridges the kind of like non-official sequel series, the Gates of Hell trilogy. I think it like works a little bit better than with House by the Cemetery. It's not a better film than House by the Cemetery, but I think it completes the trilogy maybe a bit better. It fits more thematically, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And then I've got this boot of Lucio Fulci's Hansel and Gretel, which is actually a pretty weird little, like, made-for-TV Italian movie that, Fulci is kind of, like, uncredited as the director, and he's supposed to be more like the producer of it, but, it seems to me that, or at least from what I gather from some different, like, I have, like, a book on Italian horror films, and, just from, like, some research online and, like, credits on IMDb, I kind of get the feeling that maybe Fulci had more to do with this movie than just kind of being, like a producer in his old age, like slapping his name on it. And there's definitely some typical like Fulci themes with like supernatural children and kind of like violence towards children. It's got a little bit of maybe don't torture a duckling in it. It's got a little bit of everything to it. If you haven't seen this one, I definitely recommend it. You can only watch it like a subtitled version like this, but I've wanted to do a reference this film of this one as well. It's so cheaply done. Like, the film stock is so just gross, and I know that it might just be this bootleg of it that I have, but man, it's like, but it kind of adds to the kind of gross quality of the movie. Then my copy of Sodoma's Ghost. I did a reference to this film on this one that I actually quite like. You know, for the longest time I thought this was like a bootleg, but I guess maybe it's not. Like, I've seen this like a bunch, like this exact release. It's just kind of like, I don't know if it's not like burn on demand though. It's a weird one. This is like a weird region free, I think, release of the movie. But, you know, cool cover and everything. And this is a movie that everyone seems to really dislike, and I like a lot more than everyone else does. Then Fulci's The Psychic. This was another one that I bought really early on when I was really young. And, you know, it's a slow burn movie, but I think the twist is really, really well done. I would definitely recommend it. People kind of consider that to be like a true work of art of his. And I agree. Like I said, it might be a little slow for some Fulci fans. Touch of Death, I kind of consider this to be one of his worst films, especially of his like later period films. I get that it's supposed to be kind of like a horror movie spoof. It's supposed to be kind of a comedy, but it just falls flat. It just falls super flat. And there's nothing like horrific about the movie either. Like, I don't get what it's trying to do other than maybe like be a funny Bill Lustig's Maniac, if that makes sense. Like, that's kind of what it is. The Devil's Honey, which I think is truly one of his most disturbing films, and one that's I don't know if it there are aspects of it that I think may have aged very well, considering kind of like the social climate that we're in now, you know, especially being like here in the Northwest in the Portland film community. There are parts of this movie that I think, oh, I feel like maybe people around here might really like this movie. And then aspects of it that I'm like, oh, people would really not like this movie. I recommend it. I kind of consider it to still be a horror film, although it's, you know, it's maybe, I don't know, maybe closest thing in here is like I Spit on Your Grave or something. You know, about this girl who is in love with this kind of like definitely abusive saxophone player, and he's in this horrible motorcycle accident, and then there's a surgeon who's supposed to save him and doesn't because he's distracted with fighting with his wife. So then the girl of the dead boyfriend like kidnaps him and holds him hostage and almost lets her dog eat him and keeps him naked and just like sexually torments him, and all this crazy shit happens in this movie. And then there's kind of like a revelation of how shitty her saxophone boyfriend was anyway. Like, who gives a shit? And goes into like homosexuality and stuff. I really need to do this film, but I don't know how I could get away with it on YouTube. It's a bizarre one. It's a really bizarre one. It is kind of a trip to watch. Then Murder Rock, I got this recently. I think that this is like one of the best giallos. I'm serious, man. I love the 80s music. I love the dance school setting. I love the lighting in it. There's, you know, some really recognizable actors in it. I think that the weapon of choice is pretty clever, considering, like, the way that a lot of the other Italian horror directors were going with some of, like, the amount of bloodshed in some of the mid-'80s giallo films. So I think this is just different. He was just doing something completely different, and it's all the better for it. And my Arrow release of Don't Torture a Duckling, which is an absolutely beautiful film, an absolute work of art, definitely one of his best films. There's so many standout scenes in this movie, but the one that always gets me, the one that no one ever really seems to talk about, that's always like the standout scene to me, is with the adolescent boy, like before he dies. He goes, gosh, I can't remember exactly what's happening, but he's supposed to, like, bring tea to this, like, very beautiful, very nude woman who, gosh, I believe she, like, moved away, or something like that, or she married some guy with a bunch of money, but she's kind of known as being, like, a little bit off and overly sexual, and she's, like, completely nude in front of this, like, 12-year-old boy who's just, like, super nervous, and she's, like, quizzing him on sex and stuff, and kind of humiliates him in a way, and I just find that scene to be so powerful. And I'm someone, I know nothing really about psychology, but I'm kind of one of those amateurs that wonders about shit and probably comes up with wrong theories. But the reason I bring all that up is, so many people say that Fulci had so many issues with women, and boy, that's a telling scene, isn't it? Like, if you know the scene that I'm talking about, or if you haven't seen it, I recommend watching it. And you kind of almost wonder if, like, he had a very domineering mother, or just had, like, issues with sex, or had some experience with an older woman at some point or something that really made him feel inadequate, because that's just such a well-done scene and feels, like, so telling. You watch that and with the context of knowing Fulci's issues with women, it's pretty powerful stuff. Well, that's it, man. Thank you so much for recommending this video. I can do other videos too. I got all these other shelves. I know I got other Fulci stuff. I guess really quickly I could, show my my VHS copy of Zombie 2, which is really just Zombie. But, you know how capitalism works, bro. This company releases Zombie, and then they release the exact same movie as Zombie 2. And, they convince you to buy the exact same movie over again. That's capitalism, bitch. And then, I got a Creature Features release of The Gates of Hell. Just a horrible transfer. If you've seen my reference this film, I used this transfer instead of, like, a DVD. I always try to use the VHS tape transfers. I don't know, there's something a little more, like organic about them. I kind of like the shitty quality. I know that sometimes people are like, oh, the quality of the clips you show are pretty bad, and that's typically because I take the VHS ones. I think that it's kind of got a style to it, It's not, like, all glossy. And plus, these reviews are to encourage people to go buy the movie, and I get shit, like, from YouTube or whatever, getting those copyright things, and it's like, bro, I am not stealing your movie. I'm actually trying to convince people to go out and buy your movie. And maybe using the crappy clips kind of helps in that. So, anyway, guys, until next time.